So, oops. And now it does not look like the slides want to advance for me. Oh, there we go. All right, it is now. So I'm Jenny Marcinkevich. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of the Center for Teaching and Learning here at Kent State University, and I'm also an associate professor of biology. And I'd like to invite my co-facilitators in to say hello as well. Liz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Liz Wagoner. I'm all pronouns. I'm the CTL faculty affiliate for the year, and I'm an assistant professor of English.
Thank you. And Leanne.
Hi, y'all. I'm Leanne Thomaswick. I'm the Innovation Learning Design Specialist at the Center for Teaching and Learning. And on that note, I'm just going to throw this on the screen real quick. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's put in the chat a link to the Google Drive folder that has a ton of resources on it for you. And that's what I'm just going to show you right here. Here's just a quick visual of what you will go to when you click that link that is in the chat in Teams. You can find the slides, questionnaires, and all sorts of other great resources. And I will turn it back to you, Jenny.
Thank you. Speaking of Sarah Beal and Michelle Corvette are also here from the Center for Teaching and Learning, and they will be helping a little bit more in the background, but they can both wave right now if they'd like to. Thank you. All right, thanks everyone. So we'll go ahead and move forward. And thanks for getting the recording started. All right, so we do have some objectives of our session today. We hope that by the end of our time together, you'll be able to describe approaches that help to support our students, particularly our first generation students, in developing a sense of belonging and community in the classroom. We want you to be able to identify inclusive strategies that really dig deeply into our first generation students and their lived experiences. And finally, we hope that you'll have the interest and willingness to adapt some of the strategies we're talking about in terms of student questionnaires and community agreements for your own unique context. Right. You know, this slide advancing thing is just not working all that well. Okay, so some of you already know that you are here because you want to earn the Inclusive Teaching Endorsement through the Ohio College Teaching Consortium. It is a program that recognizes instructors for completing 6 professional development opportunities and reflecting on those so that you can implement evidence-based instructional strategies around inclusive teaching. For those of you who are not yet aware of this, I hope that you will think about it. It's a great opportunity to add to your skills and have that reflected as an endorsement on your CV. We do have a Google form, and I'll ask someone to go ahead and put the link to the Google form in the chat so that we can help track attendance for those who are attending today with an interest in the inclusive teaching endorsement. So if you can do that, that would be outstanding. That would really help us a lot. Yep. All right, so one of the things that we're going to be talking about extensively, and we're going to model it now, is having some sort of community agreement. And I think we'll probably go ahead and need to alter the Google form for permission. So if somebody can do that in the background, that'd be great. Thanks for pointing that out, Devin. So we are going to model one approach to a community agreement. And so we're asking at this time, as you participate in this workshop, to keep in mind, take space, make space as an approach to your participation. So take space and participate fully, engage deeply and meaningfully, but also make sure that you're practicing self-awareness and allowing others to contribute as well. So make space for others. We're asking that you be fully present, while also acknowledging that you may have some needs to attend to. You may feel the need to stand up and move about. You might feel the need to get a drink of water, something like that. So be fully present while also attending to your own physical needs. Practice curiosity while you're here. We find that curiosity is so important. And remember that what you learn here leaves here. Take it away, share it with others, share it in your own teaching practice. But what's shared here in terms of personal examples, let's leave this here. Let's let that stay here. So these are some of the things that your workshop facilitators came up with in terms of what we would like you to consider. However, we would also like to invite you to think about anything else you think it's important to add. So we like to do this as a ready, set, go activity. So think to yourself for a moment, what would you add to our workshop community agreement? When you've thought about that, go ahead and put it in the chat without entering, without pushing send. So that will get you set, and then we will say go when it's time. What questions do you have? If there are no questions, be thinking to yourself, what would you add? And go ahead and enter that in the chat. Give you a few moments to be typing that in. And then I'll say go. If you're ready, go ahead and enter your comments in the chat. Okay, this is great. Thank you so much for helping us out here with our community. So being open and present, excellent addition. Expectations, both student and instructor. So facilitator and participant, yes, I think that's really important. Keep an open mind. Thank you, Stacy. Be open and flexible. Value others' perspectives. Another, be open-minded. Offer big cash incentives. I'll talk to you later. Be respectful of other viewpoints and perspectives. Yeah, a lot of perspective taking. Humility. Enjoy the learning. Yes, ask questions because they help us learn. Yeah, have grace. These are wonderful. So as we move forward, let's keep all of these in mind, as well as the things that were already on screen. And thank you, practice kindness, having grace. Those are all absolutely terrific. Thank you for your contributions. We will keep these all in mind. And if we feel that we're falling short, it's okay to put a reminder in the chat. Could just be community agreement. Gentle reminder, community agreement. All right. Okay, trying to advance the slide. I really don't like the new setup. Okay, so what do we mean when we say first generation student? I assume all of you are interested in first generation students because that was in the title and in the workshop objectives. So what do we mean? So first gen students are defined as students who are or are going to be the first in their families to earn a bachelor's degree. It's defined differently by different organizations, but this is the definition that's on the Kent State I Am First website that was obtained from the first gen site from NASPA. And so just as a question, what percentage of your students do you think are first gen? Go ahead and put it in the chat if you want, before I do the big reveal on the answer. 60%, 40 to 60, 80%, maybe half, less than 10%. 35, 50. We've got quite a few. And it does vary depending on whether or not you're thinking just about your class, whether you're thinking about a campus, a department, a school, a different university even. Yeah, someone here says they teach on 2 different campuses and believe it varies. And it does. It certainly does. I will tell you that if we look at all of the Kent State campuses, as a single entity, which we know that they are not, it's about 37% as of this fall. But nationally, the average is 56%. And so you can see that there is indeed quite a bit of variability. I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of first generation students. And so it is important for us to take some time to think about how we can best serve their needs. And with that, I believe I have one more slide and then I pass to Liz. Let's think about first-gen students and acknowledge that they have their own particular experiences, and in some instances, they don't have experience to draw from. So they may lack have a lack of knowledge related to what we sometimes call the hidden curriculum. These are things that many of us assume that all students know, but first-gen students don't, because they haven't had, let's say, parents or perhaps even siblings who talk about, oh, the syllabus. They may not know what the purpose of a syllabus is, or they may not have had the benefit of hearing from others that sometimes college is tough and then it gets better. And we learn and we succeed in the end. So they may not have that same perspective. They may feel very alone. They may feel as though an awful lot of the other students have had something in their background that they haven't had. Or they may think that everybody else is thriving when in fact they are also struggling. And they may experience self-doubt. A lot of this can be pulled from Lisa Nunn's book on college belonging. So we know all these things. And one of the things that we may not think about enough is how important our instructor mindset is to their success, our attention to their experiences and their needs, and our belief that with that crucial information and with some of these intentional strategies, they are able to be in an environment where they can thrive. So instructor mindset is really key. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass to Liz. So take it away, Liz.
Thank you, Jenny. The first tool I'd like to talk today that can help with facilitating first-gen student belonging is the student questionnaire. I've used the student questionnaire in my courses for the past 17 years, and over time, the impact of having that introductory information available to me transformed key aspects of how I relate to my students and how we build community in the classroom. When I started working on teaching tools in a flash about student questionnaires, which will be available to you in its draft form in our Google Drive, even though I knew how this tool had helped me in my teaching praxis, I was stunned to find so much research about the benefits of using student questionnaires in the classroom. This is a simple tool to use at the beginning of your semester. It's easy to implement, and its impact is surprisingly large for any student, but especially for first-generation students. So first things first, a definition. What exactly is a student questionnaire? A student questionnaire is a short list of questions to help you get to know your students. So the research actually has a lot about the benefits of using student questionnaires. There are several general benefits to using a student questionnaire. The first is that it builds rapport. Building rapport with your students begins with those before and after class conversations with the students. And when you build rapport with your students, it increases rapport not just between you and the students you're talking to, but between students. Student-to-student rapport increases, which is key to beginning to build your classroom community. When these in-class relationships have been addressed, students enjoy the material more, they're more engaged in class, and they tend to stick with the class with greater rates of course completion and retention. So it's a really outsized benefit It also increases trust. When you're using a student questionnaire, it does build trust. And why does that matter? When students trust their instructors, they're more willing to try using new tools. They're willing to try learning unfamiliar concepts and applying difficult ideas. The students will also have a sense that you as an instructor care about them. And why does that matter? It translates rather directly into better performance on tests, into more questions asked when there isn't full understanding, and with that trust, perseverance when the student encounters a difficult moment in their learning, because they know cares and will help them learn the material. So using a student questionnaire also increases equity for first-generation students in the classroom. The information you gather with the student questionnaire allows you to address the whole student, understanding more about their life, the issues that impinge directly upon their bandwidth, a glimpse into what other things they're juggling, and if you choose to include a question or two about the background knowledge of your course material, it'll help you to understand how best to prepare, what material to review, and what to reinforce in your teaching. There's actually a lot of research about this, and if you're interested in looking at a few really great sources, it's on the shared Google Drive. So we'll get to that. There we go. So there are a few considerations when you're thinking about creating a student questionnaire for your class. The first consideration is when you would like to administer the questionnaire and also how you would like to administer it. You could administer your questionnaire before class begins for the semester. So you could review it before class even starts to inform yourself about who's in your class. You could also administer it during the first week of class if you prefer, even on the first day. And this can happen in class if you have time or outside of class for the students to turn in. This can be used as an icebreaker activity, or it can simply be something you collect physically or digitally to inform yourself with. So how can you create a student questionnaire? There are two ways you can build one for your class depending on what you would like it to do. The first type of questionnaire you could use is an open-ended personal questionnaire. This type of questionnaire lets you gather information about your students as human beings. What are their interests? What do they see as their strengths, rather? What are some things they like and their hobbies? I actually like to use this information to inform myself about the students in each of my sections, and I use these early connection points in our before or after class conversations. Another type of questionnaire you might want to use is a background questionnaire that focuses on your course content. This type of questionnaire focuses on finding out more about a student's background or prior knowledge on the subject of your course. This can also include questions about the student's goals in your course. What areas do they hope the course helps them to strengthen, or what they hope to improve through their work in your course? So what if you want to do both of these things on your questionnaire? You can actually create a questionnaire that combines both of these, and that's actually what I myself do. So what are some example questions that you could include on a student questionnaire? You could ask, what name would you like me to call you? I invite you to also use pronouns. What is something in your life that's important to you? Why is it important for you to take this course? And what is your previous experience with the topic of this class? They can talk about informal or formal experience there. What is one strength you have or one obstacle you've already overcome in order to be here? And number 6 is one of my favorites. What is your greatest concern about being successful in this course? You'll find out a lot if you use that question. And with this, I will pass it to Leanne.
Wow, Liz, and I appreciate so much your experience and what you've brought from what you have done and you just naturally came to with student questionnaires, right? It is supported by literature, but it wasn't like you were reading the literature from the beginning. So thank you for sharing all of that. And something to think about. We would like you to engage just for a moment here with a ready, set, go again. So there were some example questions that Liz provided with her favorite at the end. But think for a moment to yourself, what are some of your favorite questions to ask your students? Think to yourself, you could start typing if you would like, but remember, as Jenny said for the first ready, set, go, we're not going to hit enter. So what are some of your favorite questions to ask your students to get to know them? Okay, so if y'all want to type that in the chat, there you go. And go. Send, hit enter, send it. What are your hobbies? Why are you taking this class? Tell me something unique about yourself. Why do you want to be a nurse, right? Why do you need this degree? What describes you? Yeah, giving them that personal creativity to kind of say who they are. I love it. What are some non-academic barriers to your learning? Yeah, Kathy, thinking about that outside perspective, what other responsibilities might a student have? I teach writing, so I ask them what they think good writing means. I also ask that at the end of the course. That would be really cool, professors, to see how that changed. What can the instructor do to help you be successful in the course? What can you do to be successful? So having those two different perspectives of what can I do as a student? What can I do as an instructor? That responsibility there. I like it. Tell them about themselves. What's your biggest pet peeve? Ooh, I like that. That could be course related or not related, just something good to get to know your students. What are the topics you're looking forward to? Who inspired you? Such wonderful examples. Thank you all for putting that in the chat. We all have our favorites, right? And so those questionnaires, build them. You know, we have a bunch of examples that you can use that Liz put together that are research-based, that come from all different places, but make it your own. Make those questions your own. And there was a question I do want to address that somebody put in the chat just before we started this Ready, Set, Go that was asking, in case you aren't able to see the chat, I want to make sure everybody's included in this, and I'll read the question. The question was, do you suggest any incentives for students to take a questionnaire? For instance, points or no points? So I would like to invite Liz and Jenny in, maybe Jenny first since she was the first one to respond, but to verbally answer that question.
Thanks, Leanne. I think it is a great question because, we want our students to participate in this, and it's really important. So you could certainly give points. Even if you don't give points, I would explain how it is that you use this information, that you intend to make this a student-centered experience and to personalize the course to the extent possible. So if nothing else, I would try to motivate students to participate by letting them know this is an opportunity for me to get to know you as a real human being, and I hope that you'll get to know me as well. And lots of people also share their background questionnaire answers with their students, so it is an equal experience. And I'd like to have Liz go ahead and comment as well.
Definitely, thank you. I actually have this as a credit, no credit portion of the percent of the grade that is designated for participation. So this is something that they are required to turn in at the beginning of the semester. And I have it in Canvas when I accept it digitally. So they'll turn it in. And I also want to second what Jenny said. It's nice to actually do the questionnaire yourself as well and share a little bit about yourself so that everyone's kind of on the same footing and everyone's getting to know each other at the beginning of semester. And that classroom community will be started right in that moment when you start to share about yourselves.
Thank y'all. And thanks for the question. The only thing that I would add is giving your students time. So even if you decide not to give credit for this, right? Well, our students get to do it. It's have time during class. If you're using a paper version of it, great. Just have 5-10 minutes at the beginning or the end of that first class or the second class to do it. If it's online, maybe send those students that reminder, hey, please bring your smart devices. Or, if you need whatever that might look like, and give them that 5 minutes in class to give them that 10 minutes. Because the more time that we have doing it face to face live, the more likely you will get those responses even without credit. And I think I missed one of the responses was, what are your hobbies? Why are you taking this course? So I think I've gotten through everybody's tell me something unique. Yeah. So thank you all for participating. You ask about their course load. That's another thing. And anticipatory challenges for the term. What do you expect to learn from this course? These are wonderful. And again, make it your own. So let's transition a little bit to, oh, we get to design our own questions and maybe invite your students to answer or make their own question. You could even do that, right? If there's something I didn't ask you that you want me to know or that you'd like to know about your peers, you could even add that to it, right? Level that up. But so let's picture this. You've done your questionnaire. You have designed your questions. You've got maybe even 8 questions. You've picked your favorites. You've made your own. And you've got responses, right? You've had most of your students respond online. So everything's kind of organized maybe in an Excel file that you download from Qualtrics or from Canvas or your learning management system if you're not from Kent State, right? So how might you use this information? How might it be used in class? As it was mentioned, I think it was Jenny that mentioned that you could also share these results with your students, not just the student results, but your own. As Liz mentioned, share your responses to these questions. How might this information be used communicating with students? Right? If students say something about email or about Twitter or about some other way that they're communicating, how might you use that? Designing assignments, assessments, activities, how this information can change your course. And also, as this title of this workshop is, how can that information support a sense of community, connection, and belonging? And you might have other ways of thinking about how you can use this information, but right now we want to take the steps of, okay, let's pretend that we have given these questions to your students. And in this frame of mind, how are you going to use the information? So when I click to the next slide, you're going to see results. So Jenny might have had really a good time designing these students. And so I just want to say thank you, Jenny, because they are quite enjoyable. And so on the Google Drive as shared in there, I'm guessing those are the extra students. So we have selected a few students just to share with you what their responses are to, let's say, question number 1. So the students were given, what is your name and what would you like to be called, right? And feel free to share your pronouns. So I'm going to give you each a few moments to read through this table. These are fake results that you've gotten. And then I'm going to ask you all to comment. You can raise your hand and you can verbally comment. What stands out? How might you use this information? And so I'm going to be quiet and just let you read it and think about how you might use this information. Would anybody like to verbally or in the chat say what was something that stood out? As an instructor and you're reading this table, what stands out to you or how could you use this? So they, them, their stands out. Yeah, thank you. If you'd like to say more about that, you're welcome to.
So, sorry, I think that this would be a situation where, as an instructor, I would want to be very conscious of using the correct pronoun when speaking about this person, and I would need to be aware of the fact that I may have a, for me, natural tendency to refer to this person using a different pronoun, so I need to watch out for that.
Thank you, Gary. And if I may, and also give yourself that grace. So this is talking about sense of belonging, community, and building together. And so we may make mistakes, right? So we may identify them and use a pronoun that they did not want to, or they identified as not my pronouns. And it's just, I apologize, right? And then move forward and working on that. So yeah, but it is an effort. It is an effort when we've been maybe trained a certain way. Thank you. Anything else that somebody would like to add about what stands out or what you might focus on or how you might use this information? And feel free at any time to put it in the chat. I'm going to go. So that's question number 1. That's like the basic, what am I going to call you? If they want to show their pronouns, great. Next. Okay, this is question 2. So this is the same. The left column is the same. So if you want to focus on the right column, what is something in your life that is important to you? And I'm going to let you read it by yourself without me talking. So when you think about these responses in your specific course, place it in your specific course. How would you use this information? They sound a little like self-care items. So something maybe to connect with in class of like, oh yeah, if they need it, maybe it's a suggestion when you see that they're stressed, oh, music, or get some extra sleep. Maybe you can set a timer and take a nap, or nature. Yeah, all outside of class itself. Thank you. What else? Another person has said sharing outside interest and perhaps invitation to reciprocate. Yeah, that opportunity you've got these student responses and maybe you didn't share your responses to all the questions when they first answered. So this is that opportunity to say, so something that's important in my life. Yeah, building connections with each other and with faculty. Yeah. Knowing students' interests helps me when teaching foreign language classes because I choose topics to teach based on that. That's wonderful. So connecting things that the students are interested in. And with this broad question, what is important in your life? They're able to answer that without worrying about a connection. I know sometimes, at least in my previous institution, when I was asking questions, I'd say, so what interests you about chemistry? And I had a bunch of non-majors in my class, right? General chemistry. And they're like, nothing. I don't like chemistry. And I get it. Like, that's fine. You're non-majors. But if I ask this question is what is something important in your life, then I, as the content expert, could make those connections for them. Yeah. And another person in the chat said announcements for activities that may overlap. Yeah. And so it goes back to what Jenny mentioned, that student centered. So making opportunities to connect with a student. And for first generation students, it's so important that they feel connected, that they're not just another name. They're just not a person sitting in class. Like that this is something that connects with them, that you actually read these responses and are using them in some form or fashion. So nice, nice. I think we've got 2 more. So we'll move on. Question number 5. The same again, left column is the same names. The right column is what is one strength you have or one obstacle you have already overcome in order to be here. I'll let you read through that for a minute. And I smile a little bit larger because someone posted in the chat, I think referencing the last question, question number 2, as I'm reading it right now, also giving me a heads up that other interests may explain issues that occur later in the term. I think that one goes directly along with this one as well of this could explain some things of where students come to challenges. Yeah, so yeah, barriers. Another chat comes up. So please put it in the chat. How may you use this information? Building confidence of students, adding support structure. So maybe providing students with resources or something of that sort, right? Better understanding those barriers that students come with and the challenges they have. Yeah, anything else that somebody else would like to add? I will say right now in Teams, I'm not seeing when someone is typing. So a previous function of Teams said blah, blah, blah is typing. So you could see that. And so I could pause and be more patient and wait and have some indication that people are typing. And it's just not an available feature today. So my apologies. In a way, when things get difficult. Yeah, yeah. And also, so feel free to keep typing in the chat, understanding those obstacles. But I also really like, and this is something that I hadn't actually thought about, I was reading it right now. Kathy, another person in the chat says it helps to know what university supports might be helpful to share. So either during class or through the learning management system, Canvas links to things. But also thinking about that, people did say, I'm right, Rosie Franklin said, I'm pretty creative and I have a good imagination. Well, that's something to bring up. Or Alan Turing, right? My superpower is solving puzzles. So how can you use that in class and thinking about that? Jenny has her hand up. I'll invite you in.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me, and granted I wrote the answers, but I think it really helps us and our mindset to view our students as having tremendous assets. They have their own personal strengths that they bring to class, and any way we can pull that in. It might even be, hey, this particular assignment might benefit from somebody who's really good at solving puzzles or putting together the different pieces. Alan, I know that you are someone who really thrives on that kind of challenge. So being able to bring forward those strengths, I think, can be really useful. And also, it helps our mindset, remembering their strengths, remembering that our students have assets. They are resilient. Even if they're struggling in class, they are resilient. They have overcome a lot in order to be here. George Washington Carver here is having to take care of grandma after school. That's a huge strength to be able to do that and to manage. And so if we just look at, let's say that GW Carver is doing okay-ish in class, but understanding that it's not because that student is messing around, they have other commitments. And so I think it helps our mindset as well.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think it helps with thinking about asking questions, right? We're asking questions first. And so we have a little bit of information to fill the gaps as to why is a student not participating and getting their homework in at a certain time, or what might come of that. And giving not only them that grace to think about that, but if I'll take it a level, I'll level it up, I'll take another step. That every so often, if you see that your students are just kind of, it's like the energy is low, it might just be mentioning, hey, y'all, I know that maybe you've struggled in the past, right? You let me know that you have other responsibilities, like maybe taking care of family members, and making it broad enough to not call out a student, but just remind them that I know that you're struggling and you've overcome things to be here today, and thank them for that. Just that acknowledgement can mean so much to a first generation student, let alone any student in your class, but especially a first generation student. 6 weeks into the course, oh, wow, they do remember. They do remember I have different responsibilities. I am human and they see me as a human being. Oh, okay. I want to come back to this class. I feel like I belong. So thank you all. Another comment that was in the chat that I didn't mention was it may play a larger role in terms of advising resources on and off campus. Yeah. And so as the instructor of the course, though, we might not be, we can communicate with the advisor. We can at least suggest to the student, maybe go talk to your advisor about this, or again, connect them with those resources. Because, right, it's that lack of knowledge, as Jenny spoke about earlier, as first generation, they don't know what they don't know. So, yep, so that's one thing you can do. And then an extra question. I'll give you a minute to read it. We've got time, so I'll give you a minute to read it. This is the same students, and the question of, is there anything else you'd like me to know to be able to support your learning? There's anything, any new insights that might come, how you might use this in class, associated with your assignments, maybe deadlines, sense of belonging. Anything else you'd like to add that hasn't come up maybe in the other questions? And I can't see if anybody's typing. Oh, teams, you are just frustrating me today. So I'll say what I'm doing in my head is counting wait time, because I am so uncomfortable with silence. interaction, active learning. Yep, that it might help that Rosie of like, I don't like just hoping lectures aren't just talking, right? So you might attend to that extra that they gave you. Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure the other learning management systems, but in Canvas, you could have deadlines, you could have as part of schedules, maybe send announcements and reminders when things are due. For Rachel Carson, who just loses tracks of deadlines. This is such a common thing, especially for students taking multiple classes in first gen. It's a different type of management that they've had in the past. Other things in the comments are addressing the last student's fears. Yeah, I'm worried about getting hassled by other kids in the class because yes, absolutely. How can you have a safe space in that class? How can you design the environment so that student won't get harassed? Yeah. Another comment was putting me on notice as my students' expectations of me and how best to address it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just that bit of information that you can easily get in a survey at the starting of the semester. And feel free to continue putting things in the chat about what you've seen. And as Jenny put in the chat earlier, the link that you can go check out the other responses to other questions that Liz said earlier. And you can kind of go through and be like, oh, what would I do with this? Because at least for me, it's easier than in the moment when I get responses. I'm like, oh, I've already kind of, thought about this a little bit and I've got some preview. So I'm not standing there like a deer in the headlights. Yeah. Another comment is Rachel's comment about reminders. I used to think these were intrusive and bothersome, but I realized after asking my students that they really like them. Yeah, that's wonderful that you asked your students, right? Because we get lots of different messages. We might get different messages from our peers, right? Other instructors in the department of, I don't do that because they get annoyed. But if you ask your students, is this what you like? You could even follow up, say, I've noticed that a lot of you want that you might lose track of deadlines. I could do announcements, I could do emails, I could do a certain few different ways. What do you prefer? So you could dive deeper into their preferences if you like. But right, who knew? Unless you ask them, we make assumptions, we fill gaps of knowledge with things. So I will move on, but thank you all for participating. Thank you so much. But other ways, I just want to finish with other ways to connect with first generation students. So learning about who they are. And as Liz mentioned, answering these questions yourself. It is so important to share lived experiences. Sometimes those questionnaires get at that. And so describing to students that you're human. And if you're comfortable sharing some of the challenges that you overcome, I would share when I was teaching chemistry that I got a D in acid-base redox reactions in high school. And I had a complete breakdown on this exam. Like I could not handle it. And I'm telling this as a graduate student in the Department of Chemistry. I'm in graduate school for chemistry. And I almost failed high school chemistry. And I told them this because I said, I just couldn't get it. It was so abstract to me. And I described this challenge of how I would stay after school and I would work through it. And now look at me. I'm in graduate school for chemistry. Who would have guessed? Not me, right? But I overcame that challenge. Sharing that with your students, you become more human. And they might be able to see themselves, right? Think about that sense of belonging, that I might belong in this major. I might belong as a faculty. I might belong in making a difference for others. In whatever class you are, whatever context you are, whatever that might content be. But sharing those obstacles that you've overcome and describing that can be so helpful. And previous student successes, right? So if a student was successful in your class because they went to tutoring hours, because they came to office hours, because of something, right? You could ask your students at the end of the semester, what made you successful? I think someone put in the chat, what have you done to help your success? As a reflective piece to that initial question of what can you do to help yourself be successful? Ask it at the end and share that with your students, share that advice. There's different ways to share those lived experiences to help your students feel like, oh, I'm not the only one that struggled with that. Or, oh, maybe I should try that. I'm going to invite Liz in. Her hand is up.
It's really important to share your experiences and especially moments you failed and recovered with your first gen students, because they don't always know that someone can have a massive failure sometime early in their career and go on to achieve something pretty great. So be that example for them.
Thank you. Jenny, go for it.
Yeah, I'll pop in as well. I know a colleague in another department who, with their first year experience course, was sharing with the students things such as, I struggle with time management. It's hard for me to set priorities. It's hard for me to accomplish work-life balance as well. Here are some of the things that I've tried. What have you tried? What works for you? Can we all benefit from each other and how you've managed to accomplish that? So it doesn't even have to just be past challenges or experiences of failure, but current ones as well, for them to say it's not completely in the past. It's not as though I have, ascended to some superhuman level where this doesn't affect me anymore. It still does. And learning that we can learn from each other and support one another in different approaches and things to do. Sometimes there's something about being humble with our students, saying, I am so concerned right now for my relatives living in Ukraine, just as an example. It really helps to forge those senses of to forge that sense of being in community with one another, if we are not removed or only referring to ourselves in the past as being someone who has struggled. So that was just my little addition there.
Thank you both, Liz and Jenny, because we all have something, right, in the past, but currently, and being human. And I think Jenny's point of opening that up, because then you could provide each other with resources and suggestions, because I don't know about you, but I learn every day from my colleagues and from my students of little ways, little things that they do that I'm like, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. And being able to build that connection, build those resources, and have students talk to each other, and you be a part of that, can increase their sense of belonging. Because many times the resources that are going to help students most, they might not know, or that might be stigmatized of, oh, I'm not going to use that because I don't, then I'm going to have, I'm not going to go tutoring because then it's that's for bad people. That's for this, right? And so that sharing of, I use this now, or I've used, like this could really help me, or this has helped me in another class, whether it's going to a writing center, it can also decrease that stigma and help the students feel like, oh, I could really use this. And it might prompt them to use it. Therefore, feeling a greater connection, not just with their peers, but with the university, and increase retention, and right, it just bubbles up. So anything that you can do for first generation students. But look at me, I'm going on my tangent. So I think I'm gonna bring Jenny in, right? Because you are next.
I am. Yes. I'm going to try again to control the slides, but acknowledging I might need your help to advance the slides.
Jenny, if I may, in the bottom left of my screen, it does pop up with arrows. You just really can't see them because it's on white background. So it may pop up right down here for you.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
No. Okay. Oh, I must have pushed the back arrow by accident, not being able to see the back. So I'm going to try.
Just bring us back. There you go. I brought us back.
Thank you. All righty, thank you very much. The other thing I just wanted to share as related to sharing stories of personal struggle, I do want to acknowledge that is easier for some instructors than other. And by easier, I mean that some instructors who hold marginalized identities, this may not actually be the right way forward. It might be better for those individuals to share other students and their experiences, because unfortunately, for some people who have marginalized identities, to be able to share stories of failure might reinforce some negative stereotypes. So I'm not recommending that is something that everyone should feel obligated to do. It's something to reflect on very seriously. So with that, let's talk about community agreements. We've already experienced one way of doing a community agreement at the beginning of the workshop. Community agreements are designed so that there's a shared understanding between learners in a course and between learners and instructor in the course about how everyone wants to work together during the course. What's going to work out best for our community of learners? And I will point out that there are resources shared in that Google Drive folder on community agreements. So we'll talk about that as we move forward. All right, so there are many benefits of a community agreement. It can help to create a shared sense of responsibility and accountability. It really works best if you emphasize the community aspect of the agreement. It's a way for all of us to hold ourselves and each other accountable to what we agree to, and so that we all feel responsible in creating together an environment where everyone can learn, where everyone can feel valued, where everyone can participate fully in this shared experience of learning. It can also offer students a real opportunity to advocate for their needs. So having students be able to say at the very beginning of a course, this is what I need in terms of how we will be with each other in order to learn effectively. And so being able to advocate for your own needs is really important. And it really models the importance of community and connection for learning. We know that learning can be supported to a very great degree by doing this in community and doing this with each other. Co-creating knowledge is so powerful. And when there isn't a sense of community and connection between learners, it can actively interfere with the learning that occurs. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing to do, of course, is to really think about your class. You want to think about how many students are in the class. You know, if it's a 250 person large lecture course in theater style seating that's fixed, the way in which you might go about a community agreement would look very different than perhaps one in which students are sitting at small tables in a very small class. You might think too whether or not the students are likely to know one another. Are they all part of the same cohort that comes in as part of a lockstep small program? Or is it a variety of people, perhaps at various different points in their college experience? Are there majors and non-majors? Are they graduate students? Are they undergraduate students? So really think through your context and how this might best work. And you can do this in one of two ways. You can really do it the way that we started today, that we modeled, with providing your students with some example agreements or phrases, some things that you come up with on your own. And you might give students the opportunity to then discuss those, rewrite those, vote on the top 5 of those. There are many ways to facilitate this. It can be very practical. We agree to do X, Y, and Z. We agree not to do Q, R, and S. Or we're going to challenge ourselves. We're going to challenge ourselves to be open to new ideas, to building a better future through our work together in this class. You know, it could be very, very broad. So think about what you believe to be the most important aspects of this community agreement as you're designing it. What we're going to talk about and actually do here in just a moment is we're going to co-create community agreements. And this probably works best in smaller sized classes where small groups of students or partners or even the entire class writes a list of statements that should be considered for the community agreement, and then some consensus is reached about whether or not that's where the community wants to land on those different things. I will say that it's best if you can treat this as a living kind of agreement, something that can be added to, perhaps subtracted from. Perhaps there's some element of the community agreement that has proven to be too restrictive and it interferes with people being able to express themselves and being in a place where it's okay to make mistakes. So it might need to be a living, changing kind of agreement. The other thing is that when you are facilitating this agreement, make sure that students are landing on something that allows them to share their understanding, that gets at a shared understanding of what's meant. So what does respect really mean? How does respect look and feel? How do you make it happen? What interferes with respect and a respectful environment? You have to really help students to feel that fully, so they can recognize when it is and when it isn't happening. So that's very important, that it be at least sufficiently concrete to know if that community agreement is being met or not. All right, let's see if we can advance the slide. So we're going to go into small breakout rooms in just a moment. And in our breakout rooms, we're going to ask for you and the others in that room to create or begin creating a community agreement. You can think if you were a student in your class, if you would like, or you can think about it as a group of faculty that might be coming together. However you want to think about it. It might help to keep it within the classroom learning perspective, but I'll leave that up to you. And so here are 3 prompts to guide your discussion once we get into small groups. When do you feel like you belong, and how can the group support that? When do you feel respected and valued? And what do you expect from one another? So those are the things to think about as we put you into these small groups. So I am looking to see how many people we currently have here. It looks like 21, maybe 4 people per group. Does that sound right to my co-facilitators? All right, so Michelle is going to get those set up here. Before we go there, and what questions do you all have? When we're done, we're going to be sharing with the larger group.
How long will it be in the small groups, Jenny?
Oh, thank you for asking. I think about 15 minutes or so that we will have time to share when we return.
Sounds perfect. We're good to go.
All right, well, let's go ahead and head to those breakout groups and see what kinds of statements you can come up with together that would help to clarify how learners are to be in community with one another in order to best learn. Great, off we go. We'll see you back here in 15 minutes or approximately 2:45. Welcome back, everyone. That's always well, it's always really nice because when you come back, usually you have your cameras on, and so that's really lovely to see people's faces. But I know as someone in the breakout rooms that is like always sort of a rough reentry. It's usually like mid-sentence or something like that. So I hope you had good conversations in your breakout rooms. We're able to really dig into this particular question. And so I'd love to invite you to share with the larger group what are some of the things that you came up with, whether or not you addressed the prompts or particular statements you might have come up with or approaches even, any of those things. So, and it does sound as though some folks might not be muted right at the moment. So let's go ahead and take care of that. All right. So is there someone who would like to share from their group a little bit about your conversation? Feel free to come on camera, raise your hand. You can put something in the chat if you would like to do that. Yes, Gary, please go ahead.
We had a nice conversation in our group, and we responded to the prompts, but we did come up with some statements. We weren't exactly sure how the statement should be structured, but we decided on we so that it would apply to everybody, including the instructor, so instructors and students. So we did, I think, steal a couple of yours with modifications. So we agreed to be wholly present and not use our phones during this class. Realizing that might be not an agreement that every class comes up with, but this was one that we decided we would pursue. We agreed to be kind and respectful to one another. We agree not to talk while others are talking, but to listen. We agree to encourage and help one another, and we agree to acknowledge each other's statements and express curiosity about their perspectives. So that's where we got.
Oh, those are wonderful. I really like those. That if that happened in a class, think about how fantastic it would feel for everyone in that class to have that same sense of how the class was going to unfold on a daily basis. That's terrific. Other groups, what would you like to share? Did you come up with some things that were similar? Some things that were maybe different? All right, so one group discussed a lot. It sounds as though that already having some items in place to ensure this kind of support, such as a handbook, a class handbook, or a syllabus, and to provide frequent updates. So a little bit less perhaps about co-constructing the community agreement and relying perhaps more on instructor knowledge of what might create a supportive community. Very, very good. Other statements, concepts, items for discussion that you had in your small groups? I know that in some instances when we've had these conversations, some of the things that have come up have actually come about because of asking some different types of questions, such as, what's an example of something that basically causes the class to spiral out of control, or that causes you to feel as though you are in quicksand and can't get out? Sometimes that also sparks some real thoughts on the parts of students. They might say things like, we need to avoid using you statements. You said this, you did that. Instead, I or we statements. So that's one example of something that sometimes people will do or will contribute. Other thoughts? Oh, thank you. Some great comments in the chat. We discussed ensuring that everyone has opportunities to share their thoughts and perspectives by incorporating a variety of modalities, writing, talking, and you're illustrating this perfectly by writing rather than talking. So I really, really like that a lot. Another contributor to the chat says their discussion was really good and a little bit different than the community agreement per se. Finding opportunities for building courage, giving time and space to being authentic, empowering rather than requiring disclosure, focusing on collective success, outside collaboration, shared effort, recognizing participatory effort, moving beyond the grade point average, acknowledging inequity and differences in experiences. I think those are wonderful. I think one example of a community agreement that could come up is not questioning others' lived experiences. If they say this is something that they've experienced, then they've experienced it, and not placing any judgment on their experience. Also in the chat, one group talked about identifying mutual goals of the group to work on. Yeah, so one of the things that can happen is that these community agreements don't have to just be class community agreements, but they can be agreements in small groups. You know, this is one of the frequently cited examples of why group projects don't work, because there is no agreement on things such as how are we going to contact each other? When are we going to contact each other? How are we going to hold each other and ourselves accountable for our contributions to the group and so forth? So lots of really good things here. So I appreciate all of your thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed the time to be in community with one another in your small group. I think we'll go ahead and move on, but please feel free to continue putting things in the chat or unmute if you want. So when we're thinking of the community agreement, as I mentioned before, it's great to think of it as a living document to edit as new things are learned. It's not something that has to remain static. It can be changing. There are different ways to share the agreement. This is something that you might post on Canvas. You might actually solicit contributions to the agreement using a word cloud in a polling software sort of situation. You can send reminders about the community agreement. You can read the community agreement, particularly if you know that a particular class might be really challenging, or maybe a challenging situation happened in the prior class. So there are many different ways to share the agreement and to use that agreement going forward. Giving voice to the agreement, again, just making sure that people know that if that agreement is not being met, to go ahead and speak up, speak out, maybe even just let the instructor know, I don't feel like we met the terms of our community agreement in class last time, and then have a discussion about it and review it periodically and regularly. So to sum up, we know that a sense of belonging is critical to all of our students. We also know that our first generation students report less of a sense of belonging, along with other students who are structurally disadvantaged in some ways. And so this is really critical to their feelings of persistence, their enjoyment of the college experience, and in some instances, but not all, their ability to be successful. So we know that there are many ways to support our students in their sense of belonging, just two of which are using student questionnaires to help create that sense of community and to connect with our students, and community agreements. We know that the more connection, the more sense of community we build, the more our students will feel as though they belong. And this is so important, especially for our first gen students. So these are just a few approaches, and there are a lot more. So I encourage you to look into this further, and there are further resources in the shared Google Drive folder. So we want to just make sure we spent just a couple of minutes. If you have any questions or other things that you would like to talk about, now is the time. So any lingering questions or thoughts? I invite you in to share anything that might be on your mind. Yes, we certainly can reshare the link to the Google Drive folder. It could turn into a race between all of the CTL staff. I know I will lose, so I'm not going to attempt it.
Actually, is there something we're supposed to sign up for attendance in there? Because I didn't see anything.
Yeah, we can re-sign the form, resend the form so that if you want to indicate your interest in using this for the inclusive teaching endorsement, you may do so. And so that link will also appear in the chat. Thank you for sharing those questions. And last but certainly not least, we would love to invite you to share with us how today's session went. You can either use the QR code if you're a QR code kind of person, or there's also a link, and there is the link to the survey. Thank you very much, Sarah. You can see this is a group effort. We would really love to hear from you how today's session went so that we can learn and be on a path to constant improvement. So we really appreciate that very, very much. And with that, I don't believe we have anything further, but I would like to invite Leanne, Liz, or Sarah or Michelle to chime in, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody because as in this workshop, we talk about lived experiences and how it's important to build community and connections with your students. But you all shared experiences, thoughts, ideas throughout this workshop. And I think that made it so much more valuable to each of you. So thank you for your participation for providing that. But thanks, y'all. I'll pass it off. Anybody else?
Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to encourage you all to continue learning about belonging and connections and community. It really does make a difference for our students, and I think it brings us more joy as well. And I feel as though when we do things as instructors that benefit our students and make us more joyous in our practice, it's just amazing. So I hope that you will continue to learn and move forward. So, and thank you to everyone who has expressed their thanks in the chat. I appreciate that very, very much, and hope that you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks all.